Yeah. Do you get anything everybody? A lot of them did, yeah. Maybe, I don't know. Check with Jay. Yeah. They are. They're complicated. We think it was.
Yes, I needed more sign-up paper.
Yeah. We just had to have a notebook where they could flip through and sign multiple pages.
Hey Keith, how you doing? Good.
Yeah, I mean, we will. I was prepared. Okay. So I don't know when you want to. Yeah.
Get you just a
Got all those, huh? Oh, here's one. No, I got thanks. Yeah, I'm good.
I can pop one in if you get
Yeah,
choked up and you don't hear it crankling.
I'll probably need one when I get choked up. Yeah, they are bad. Okay.
There's a hesitation and all
Yeah,
that.
you make sure you have the audio on this time.
everything's
Okay.
on, see?
All right.
Yeah, I
So
noticed
people,
when I watched it.
be careful what you're saying.
When does it switch to us from them? I noticed it shows.
Well, I have to switch it back and forth between the dais and the podium.
Okay, so you have to manipulate
I
that
have to
for the camera.
manipulate
Okay,
it.
got it.
How
Right.
that works.
That's why it's labeled,
Something else
so I
to
know
do.
what's going on.
Something else to do.
We got somebody working on it.
I think we'll be all right.
And because of the cameras, that's going to change the game.
I was asking him about stepping up to some.
Yeah, it was number 13. Second page. Take the best.
You've taken what, two cruises then?
Too. We did it for our 25th anniversary to southern Bordeaux, and then last October to Vienna in Austria on the Rhine. And the one in Bordeaux was several.
Did you start in Amsterdam?
No. We had to fly in there, but we started in Bordeaux and came, back to Bordeaux. And then the one in Austria and Germany, we started in Vienna and ended at Nuremberg and flew out of Nuremberg. So we didn't have
That was cool.
Madam Clerk, are we clear? We'll call this meeting to order. Welcome you all here tonight. If you all will join me in a moment of silence, where you can pray to yourself, enjoy a moment of silence, meditate, whatever you like to do. Thank you. If you'll join me in a pledge of allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All righty, we're moving into public comment. We have quite the list, so I'm just going to put some directions out first. When you come up, say your name, your address, and then your 3 minutes will begin when the clerk is ready. If you all don't mind, for people that are hard of hearing, please pick up the microphone and speak directly into it so everybody can hear well. That'd be great. And the first person I have on the list is, I think, Susie Dudich. Thank you.
Do I pick it up out of its holder?
If you could.
My name is Susie, or Suzanne McLeod Diedrich. I live at 215 Windsor Forest Circle in Fletcher. I'm opposed to this sneaky, underhanded, uncooperative, opaque company coming in here and trying to stomp on us, give us an ugly thing, not give Fletcher any benefit from it monetarily or anything. I don't know much about the company. What I've heard from the phone tree was that it's maybe not such a up-and-coming or successful company. Maybe they're going to go out. I don't know. Who's going to maintain this thing if they put it up? The ones I have seen before are ugly. They look like either from the Scarecrow from Oz or somewhere. We don't need that. Has the specs for the tower been redesigned in the last 2 years? Weather is changing, wind is getting stronger, trees in our neighborhood are a blessing and a pain to keep up too. I had to take down 20 trees in my little half-acre lot before I moved in. Since then, I've had 3 big pine trees die, a great big 90-foot red oak, a sour gum, and all kinds of things going on, trying to keep up and husband the trees. They've fallen through the roads, lightning has struck. It's not safe to put up stuff like that that's going to be affected by trees and maintenance and, basically, that's what I had to say. I don't know about the maintenance, I don't know about the eyesore, I don't like the whole process, but I feel helpless, even though you are helping as much as you can, and I'm grateful for the whole community for pulling together. So thank you.
Thank you for your comments. All righty, next signed up, we have Mr. Brandon Olson.
Thank you, Mayor. Brandon Olson, 33 Stony Brook Court in Fletcher. I'm separate from the cell tower issue. I wanted to say today how happy and grateful I am to not be lugging in backpacks and cases, and I'm so glad that we now have this public broadcast and recording system in place and operational. I want to thank Councilman Lance for championing the effort, and all of council and mayor for supporting it. I want to thank all the public staff who's having to do extra work to operate it, and Matt's team, or Matt himself, for putting it in and getting it all put together. So thank you all. Good things to come.
Thank you for your comments.
Might want to summarize what he was talking about. I'm not sure everybody understands.
And just for reference, he's talking about the new camera system we have here. All of our meetings will now be broadcast live
And recorded.
and posted on YouTube. All righty, next up we have Ms. Teresa Scott.
May I leave the speaker here?
If you'll just speak directly into it, yeah.
Is that good?
Yes,
Can you
ma'am.
hear me? Good evening, Town Council, Mayor Blakely. My name is Teresa Scott, and I live at 722 Cardwell Lane in Fletcher. This evening, I would like to present to you as a board president of our HOA in our community. I have been asked to speak on behalf of them and the board. We are a new developed area, and we are still under construction. We have several questions and concerns at this time with prolonged neglect. This is what we feel at this time. We are directed by and controlled by Scott Street. The number one issue that we're experiencing right now in our community is erosion. The back hillside of Fern Leaf, the mountainside. Number two, flooding along the backside. This has been ponding in many of the residents, up to 2 and 3 feet in several homes. Number three, we have a problem with our streets. They're in terrible condition at this time, along with being narrow, one lane. We are experiencing a sinkhole at this time in the entryway of our community. Along with the street concerns that we have are, will they be turned over and handled by the city? Will we adhere to those items by the rules of parking and speed? And last but not least, number four, the retention pond that we have in that area. This retention pond has been a big concern to our neighbors, for their well-being and safety. This has caused an extreme amount of rodents, snakes, and mosquitoes in this area. While we've just recently had some attention to this with lawn mowing, we know that it's a work in progress at this time. The concerns and health and well-being of our residents is genuine. We want some answers. While we know that you can't provide answers to us this evening, we are eagerly awaiting a response from someone. We're hoping that that would be our developer, Mr. Scott Street. This evening, I appreciate your partnership with this process, and I thank you all for allowing me to speak on behalf of our community. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
And Eric and Mark, you all will be able to give updates on both Sycamore Cottages
Yes.
and Windsor Forest.
Yeah, we
Okay,
can provide that.
sure.
I
Thank you.
just had a quick question. Is there fencing around the retention pond?
No, ma'am, there is not.
No fencing at all?
No, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, next signed up, we have Mr. Jeff Johnson.
My name is Jeff Johnson, 203 Windsor Forest Circle. I'd like to talk just a second about the proposed cell tower. I know that the devaluation of property is a big issue with the cell tower, and I agree completely with that. But I'm going to approach this from a little different perspective. I am not a tree-hugging environmentalist. However, we have a couple of apiaries in our neighborhood. And I sent a letter to Crown Castle. I want to read you just a couple of excerpts out of that. Studies have shown that electromagnetic fields from cell towers negatively impact honeybees. Specifically, electromagnetic radiation has been found to alter bee behavior, produce biochemical changes, and impact bee reproduction. Do I think that if our apiaries collapse because of this tower, we're all going to starve to death? No. But we have to draw a line somewhere. And the North Carolina Agricultural Association has really done that. The North Carolina Honeybee and Honey Act of 1977 authorizes the North Carolina Commissioner of Agriculture and the North Carolina Board of Agriculture to promote, improve, and enhance the bee and honey industry in North Carolina, particularly relative to small beekeepers. So this tower is in direct opposition to that purpose. I have not contacted the North Carolina Agricultural Association, but I just want to see how far this goes, and I'm sure they'd be interested in this. Again, is it going to make a big difference with these two apiaries? No, but, do we want to be like China, where they've got people out there with feathers trying to pollinate things? We have enough trouble with varroa mites that are not native to the United States. We have pesticides. Right now, our hives, we've lost both of our hives. And so this is just another nail in the coffin of trying to keep our pollinators. So, thank you.
Well, thank you for your comments. Okay, next signed up, we have Diane Coleman.
I'll see, Mayor. I'll let somebody else go.
Okay. Next signed up, Michelle McCarthy.
And pass.
Okay. Mickey Gamble.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I was here a few weeks ago with some...
And if you will, just say your name and your address.
Mickey Gamble, 204 Windsor Forest Circle.
Thank you.
I was here a few weeks ago.
And will you speak directly into the microphone? I'm sorry to keep on asking you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I was here a few weeks ago with some of these same folks talking about the speed of traffic in our neighborhood, and the council promptly came up with a solution to reduce the speed limit from 25 to 20. As far as I can tell, it's had no impact at all because there's no enforcement. And we have Fanning Bridge Road, which is completely out of control. It's just like a racetrack there. It's loud, it's noisy. And, new developments, we have a new traffic light over here that is now, you all may not know this, but what happens when you do something like that, GPS is now routing all the RVs coming off of 26 East through Windsor Forest because it's shorter and ignores the traffic light. I know this is the case because I've talked to 3 of them who got lost in the neighborhood, and we're trying to figure out why they were in the neighborhood. It's where their GPS sent them through our neighborhood. Sometimes you have to look further than, a traffic light will fix it. Anyway, so now we have this other thing going on here with Crown Castle. if you look at their Facebook page, you'd think they invented Christmas. People just love them. Well, we don't. Not at this point. And it seems like there are so many agencies, governmental bodies, and so forth that govern all these things. I know you all are kind of like in the middle of all of that. But we have had a sweet little neighborhood, and it's kind of feels like it's under attack from all these different directions. And I know you all take this stuff seriously and you look at it and stuff, but we live there. So it's good to the extent you have up to this point, like kind of have our back. All you can do in that direction is welcome. I don't know,
Take a couple more seconds, because I interrupted you a couple of times.
So
It's okay.
hard to talk over that. I'm probably, maybe one of the few in the neighborhood, I do feel like the emissions from a cell tower are dangerous. I know some people are worried about their kids as well as their bees. How does this happen? What kind of a world are we living in now that just sort of lets somebody come in and start messing with a neighborhood in all these different ways? Like I said, it feels a little like we're under attack. Glad you have our back. Thanks.
Thank you for your comments. Next signed up, and I'm not sure how to say your last name, but a John that lives at 237 Windsor Forest Circle.
Hi, good evening. My name is John Chickie. I'm a resident of Windsor Forest at 237 Windsor Forest Circle. Here with my neighbors and representing my family, my wife, my two beautiful kids. I have a 9-year-old son and a 7-year-old daughter. We are opposed to the location of the cell phone tower as proposed within the neighborhood. It is non-sewer property valuation concerns. I'm no expert in the science, but I still have my own fears or concerns over the limited years of experience and limited understandings of human health risks with density, closeness, and long-term chronic exposure to the concentrated 5G electromagnetic radiation. So on behalf of my family, I would just like to share that we would ask all decision makers and influencers to do what we can to locate the tower somewhere farther away from our homes. Thank you.
We thank you for your comments. He said it. Next signed up, we have Mr. Jonathan Ferguson.
I pass.
Oh. Okay. Thank you. Next signed up, we have Kathy Manning. Kathy Manning?
I'm sorry, I didn't sign up.
Okay.
You have to talk now. You signed up, you have to get up and talk.
It's no big deal. Next, we have Kim Pot. Thank you.
My name is Kim Potter. I live at 315 Mountain Lane. I'm here on behalf of the Windsor Forest neighborhood to oppose the installation of a cell phone tower in the middle of our neighborhood. This has been an interesting process. There's a saying, you don't know what you don't know. And I found that through research on this very issue, there's a lot I don't know. The FCC has a little statement on their policy, infrastructure policy, and it says, FCC must update the policy to encourage investment in 5G networks. If we want broad economic growth and widespread mobile opportunity, we need to avoid unnecessary delays in the state and local approval process. That's because they can slow deployment. And I think that's what's happening, is that we've been granted pretty much carte blanche or using our easements to put cell towers where they want. As far as safety goes, from what I could find out is that they look at thermal energy. You know, is the microwaves going to heat your skin up, basically, in your eyes? So if you don't feel warm like you're being cooked like a hot dog, it's safe. Supposedly they set the levels at about 50 times below what that level would be. But there's things we don't know. Is that, okay, this is thermal energy. What about kids? Kids have less thickness in their skulls, even though we tell them, you know, otherwise sometimes. They have more water in their brains. They can absorb this type of energy easier than we will. We're older, we're not going to get that much exposure to it, but they're going to grow up living with this. They're going to be exposed for the whole life. From what I understand too, there's going to be thousands, hundreds of thousands of these 5G towers, because what they're trying to do, excuse me, I guess I'm running out of time here. May I have extra time?
We want to be fair to everybody, so if you could just...
Okay, I'll leave it at that. Thank you very much, and we appreciate all you're doing for us.
All right. Did the clock hit 0, Christine? I didn't hear it, but, okay. Thank you. Okay. Next, we have Mr. David Romanek.
Thank you again for the opportunity. I don't have much to add to what's been said already, but just the fact that a corporation can come in a neighborhood at random and decide to place a cell phone tower without the concern of the people that live there. I bet you none of the CEOs, none of the people that work for this company would allow a tower in their front yard. Okay, so being a little bit humane, we're neighbors, being human, they should take into consideration the fact that people live in this neighborhood. And our voice should be taken into consideration, the fact that we live there, we have to live with that tower, and the people in wherever they are, Houston, Texas, wherever they come from, they don't. So I appreciate the opportunity and to listen to our voices, and I hope that you guys that can do something about it would use your power to say no to the placement of the tower in our neighborhood. And not just our neighborhood, but any neighborhood in the surrounding areas. This is not New York City where the entire city or town is full of concrete. There's plenty of open areas that they can place these towers at. So Fletcher Tower may be one consideration. I'm not going to say put it in Fletcher Park, excuse me. But like I said, plenty of space to put a tower and not just in a residential neighborhood. Thank you, sir.
Thank you for your comments. Let's see, next we have, I believe it says Larry Cuttrell. Thank you.
I want to thank you, Mr. Mayor, and members of the council for allowing me the opportunity to speak.
And
Going to be quick. Three questions I've had for the last couple months.
Sir, just be sure to say your name and your address.
Oh, that would help, right? My name is Larry Catrone, 230 Windsor Forest Circle.
Thank you.
Okay. Since I found out about this tower, it's maybe about 2 months or so, give or take a few, I had 3 questions that I have on my mind that still haven't been answered. Why here? What's the criteria for why they're putting it here? And what's their methodology why the towers have to be in our area of Fletcher, in a residential area, with a lot of open land there, a lot of other places to put it. And unfortunately, my umpteenth call was at 11:45 this morning to Miss Ann Brooks at Crown Castle, And of course, I was specific to our needs and our location, and of course, I left a message, and of course, the call was not returned. This company is being very provocative, they're being arrogant, and it feels like almost like a home invasion. They're doing what they want to do, they're not accounting for anything, and as neighbors, we're getting kind of a little angry about it. There's no answers. I mean, 3 simple questions, and none of them are answering it. And this company is not being a good corporate partner, and, something got to give on it. They're not answering the questions, and these 3 very simple questions have not been answered. Thank you for your time.
We thank you for your comments. Okay, next we have Mr. Andrew Todd.
Hi, I'm Andrew Todd. I live at 201 Windsor Forest Circle. I'm just reiterating what all of my neighbors have said. I'm completely in opposition to the cell tower. I have 2 young children. I live right near the front entrance. Just anywhere they're deciding to put this cell tower, anywhere near our neighborhood, I don't think it's a good idea. The long-term effects on health, we have not much clue, but we're also setting a dangerous precedent as well. You allow them to put this tower here now, technology is going to change. What happens when a new technology comes up and it is detrimental to our health and our community? You do this to our neighborhood, then they're going to start looking at other neighborhoods because they can push us over. And that's what we don't need. So I know you guys are doing everything you can to mitigate this problem, hopefully solve it. But you take a look at all these people out here, we're all here, we all showed up because we oppose this. So I just want you guys to remember that. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. And Mr. George Binge.
I don't hear so good, but it's not the fault of your speaker system, it's my fault. I'd like to read a statement and then have it entered into the record after I finish.
Sure, just,
Pardon me?
Your name and address.
I will. I'm coming to it.
Okay.
My name is George M. Binge. I live at 305 Mountain Alder Lane. I'm a 25-year resident of Windsor Forest. And this is my comment. 60 years ago, a gifted American soul singer named Shirley Ellis had a hit record called The Real Nitty Gritty. When Shirley sang, quote, "Some folks know about it, some don't. Some will learn to shout it, some won't. But sooner or later, baby, you're going to have to get right down to the real nitty gritty." And she could really sing it a lot better than I could say it. Shirley was also speaking to us across the decades right here in Fletcher, North Carolina. We love Eric Rufa and all that he is doing to help us in the permitting process. But this issue is bigger than Eric. Indeed, it is time for Fletcher Town Council, the mayor, town manager, and our local representatives in the state legislature to get right down to the real nitty-gritty with Crown Castle. The Houston, Texas telecommunications conglomerate that is actively planning to install a 40-foot cell tower or multiple towers in the heart of our lovely and beloved Windsor Forest neighborhood. We, the people who live and raise our families in the bullseye of Crown Castle's corporate cell tower scheme, call on Fletcher Town Council and Town Manager to immediately step up their game and join us in the front lines of aggressively opposing these awful and unneeded towers. We therefore insist that our emphasis on elected and appointed town officials take the following immediate actions. Draft and approve a formal resolution strongly supporting our opposition to the Crown Castle cell tower. There's no reason why you can't do this. It may not be binding from a legal perspective, but it certainly would have meaning from a public issue standpoint. Number two, direct Fletcher's on-call attorney to seek an immediate permanent legal injunction or binding judicial cease and desist order against placement of Crown Castle cell towers anywhere in Windsor Forest subdivision. In addition, all Windsor Forest residents and any other concerned citizens will be invited and encouraged to participate in a soon-to-be-announced public protest to be held at Ground Zero of Crown Castle's Windsor Forest cell tower scheme.
And so that's your time. We just want to be sure we're fair to everybody.
I can't hear you. I'm hard of hearing.
That's your time. We just want to be fair to everybody, but you said you want to submit that to the record, correct?
Yeah. I just got one more paragraph and then I'm done. I understand. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for the opportunity to speak, and a special thank you to the late Shirley Ellis for helping all of us together get right down to the real nitty-gritty. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that brings us to the end of our sign-up list. However, is there anybody else that wishes to speak while we're in the public comment period?
Thank you very much. I'm David Reynolds, 112 Red Spruce Way. My wife and I have lived there for 26 years. We've seen a lot of change in Fletcher. Some of it I liked, some of it I didn't, to be honest, but, you know, that's progress. But there's something inherently wrong when you have a procedure where somebody can come up and put a cell tower on private property when they don't want it. And I mean, that's just not right. And we're really not just here for Windsor Forest. We're here for South Chase, and we're here for Livingston Farms. We're here for Riverstone. We just get the pleasure of being the first one. So, I mean, everybody's going to be waking up, and this is something that needs to be addressed, and I appreciate what you guys are doing, because you've been up front with us, you've done research, you've dug, and I mean, that's really important for us because we're in it together. And I just want to say, you know, thank you very much. I want to thank Rolanda specifically, because if it wasn't for you, we probably wouldn't know this is going on. So, you know, everything you guys can do is appreciated. We love Fletcher. We don't want to see it change. We've been here for so long, and, you know, we just want it to be the Fletcher we love. And thank you very much.
Well, thank you for your comments. Is there anybody else that wishes to speak during the public comment period? Approach the podium, sir. Oh. You already spoke? Yes. Oh, we got one more.
Hi, I'm Robert Rowland from Windsor Forest, and I'm here to oppose the cell phone tower in the neighborhood. I think it's a bad idea, and the ionizing radiation at high doses may be linked to cancer, and electromagnetic fields can cause tissue heating, you know, where the skin absorbs electromagnetic energy and elevates body temperature. And, you know, over 3,500 physicians across preventative and environmental medicine and toxology and other specialties have united against 5G, citing main associated risks of non-ionizing radiation, according to peer-reviewed scientific literature, including cancer, cellular stress, genetic damage, reproductive changes, and deficit and neurological disorders. This is Forbes Health, and the National Institute of Environmental Health Sciences also notes that in the 1990s, some research found a possible link between EMF field strength and increased risk of childhood leukemia. And so with all this, you know, taken into consideration, it's become evident that a substantial number of the fellow residents in neighborhood share these same apprehensions, valid concerns about large regarding potential health risk and environmental ramifications entwined with this positioning of this tower, and the negative, untested 5G technology in close proximity to our homes is a bad idea. Foremost among these concerns is the potential health impact and prolonged exposure to these radiation fields to children and wildlife and other animals. So, to overlook the magnitude and the visual impact that this tower would, impose on the picturesque landscape of Windsor Forest and mar the natural beauty of the neighborhood, as concerned residents, we fear the, potential reduction in the property values and also the decline in our overall allure to our community with new people moving in. And so, your attention to this crucial issue is deeply appreciated. I anticipate a thorough examination and eagerly look forward to engaging in constructive dialogue that ultimately yields the most prudent and equitable decision and resolution for all stakeholders involved. That's why I encourage you to endorse this man's idea of doing a resolution to the state bodies that govern this law and give them your utmost attention in this matter. Thank you so much for hearing me out, and again, I'm opposed to this, and I hope everyone pays serious attention to this because it involves a lot of money involved from Count Castle to public officials, which violate ethical and other community fiduciary guidelines. So I would really encourage you to get Crown Castle to move their tower. Thank you very much.
Did we get his address?
No.
We need an address.
516 Windsor Forest Court.
Thank you.
We thank you for your comments. Is there anybody else that wishes to speak?
Hi, my name is Ril Giacchetta, and I live at 605 Carolina Holly Way in Windsor Forest. And of course, I agree with all my neighbors. But to end this for me, my question is, what are all the studies that Crown Castle or whatever the company has provided with their studies on how does this affect wildlife? How does it affect young children? How does it affect those people that have had bad illnesses such as cancer? They've already gone through chemotherapy, radiation, or those people with respiratory illnesses. There's all kinds of things going on at different stages of our lives. How is this going to impact us, and what are their studies? And what have they presented Fletcher with on how we can best prepare if this continues the way it is? I would hope that it doesn't, because we have wildlife in our neighborhood. We have bears, we have fox, we have all kinds of things going in. We have bees, we have young children, we have grandparents, we have great-grandparents. So with all these stages of wildlife and people, we need to know what the impact's going to be on us depending on the conditions that we currently have and that we're already dealing with. There must be a study out there that they can present us with. And this doesn't just end with our Windsor Forest, there's the other Windsor Forest, like we had already said, and Livingston Farm and South Chase and the new developments that are going up across the street from us. There's just a lot of communities around us. But yet, I haven't seen a study that says, this is how it's going to impact you. I know what my feelings are, but I want to be prepared because we have to make life decisions based on what they can give us. And we have to decide what is best for us and our children. And so in order to do that, we have to have the information made available to us. And I'm hoping that somehow that information can be made available to us. In that regard, thank you for all your help, and thank you for listening to everybody, and thank you to all of my neighbors for showing up tonight.
We thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else that wishes to speak?
I'd like to make...
Sure.
I'd like to just make one comment and commend everybody who got up and voiced their opinion tonight. We all realize that getting up and talking in front of public is not on too many of your favorite things to do list, but it takes a lot of nerve to get up and do it, and we're impressed with everyone that took the opportunity to do that.
It certainly makes a difference. And Ms. Ravonda, the floor is yours.
I'm Ravonda Buckingham, 115 Red Spruce Way, Windsor Forest, and I want to thank everyone for the work that they're doing. When those guys showed up in my front yard, it's disheartening to think somebody can come in and just start doing this. We've lived there a little over 26 years, we had the house built, and this little guy was born there. And, it's terrifying to think someone can come in and do this. And I want to say thank you, thank you, thank you. This gentleman right here is, oh my gosh, he's been in such close contact with us all. He's wonderful. And love our neighbors, every one of them, but please, please help us stop this. And thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anybody else that wishes to speak?
Good evening, I'm Mike Brassfield, I live at 16 Gorman Lane, down here in Fletcher. I can't speak to anything about Crown Castle or any of their businesses or dealings or whatever, but I can speak to having something pop up in your easement, just randomly overnight. Seriously, I went to work one morning, I came back and there was a telephone, or a street light in my easement. But at the same time, it brought more, how do I say, use to the neighborhood. So the little bit of my land that I gave up ended up bringing a lot more value to a lot more people. I'm sure Crown Castle has their own studies that they did to select this particular site as the one that they chose. 5G is a shorter range signal, so the towers are smaller, but the range is smaller, so you need more of them. So if we don't put it here, in order to get the same network coverage, there will be 2 in other neighborhoods. And as far as the actual, EM radiation concern goes, the frequencies here are even higher, they penetrate even less, they don't interact with organic material in the same way as the old, give you brain cancer phones. So, not saying that Crown Castle isn't up to anything, whatever, just that I'm almost positive that they did not just throw a darted board and said, that's where we're putting our tower. Now that said, I'm sure the people in the neighborhoods would very much like to see that data and that reasoning for why it was their yard that gets a magic cell tower, just that it's not inherently in and of itself a bad idea.
What was your name and address again? I'm sorry.
Mike Brassfield, 16 Gorman.
16 what?
Gorman.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, thank you for your comments. Is there anybody else that wishes to speak? Okay, we will move on. The cell tower issue and the Sycamore Cottages issues aren't agenda items this evening, but I think the town manager and the plan director, they're prepared to give some updates if you all can.
I'll start it off, but, so in Sycamore Cottages, as you know, it's a multi-phase development, and they're approaching full completion of the development. So as a project progresses like that, and we do have performance bonds, so basically it's performance guarantee that certain improvements in there get complete. So a developer doesn't come in and leave town and leave a development uncompleted and not sold, and there's been some horror stories out there, things like that. It's not the case here. There are issues that need to be addressed, and some of the bonds are starting to come off and the bonds are on things like sidewalks, not the road, because they got the road essentially done, even though there's issues that need to be corrected, but trees and some other things. So so Eric Roof, our planning director, and also Javel Presley, our public works director, have been, especially as this project's getting close to the end, have been inspecting the area, and in fact, we're out there as recently as Friday, but they've had other trips out there. Are in communication with the developer to correct these things. So they're aware of the issues with the street. some of the curb and gutter. I don't think it's as much as sidewalks. And then, of course, the storm drainage improvements, the storm retention pond, and I think there's a ditch issue. And on the storm drainage things that are going on in there, we don't oversee directly that correction, but we do work hand in hand with the county. The county inspects post-construction storm drainage issues. So they help us in the development and then post-development. So Natalie Berry from the county, from their engineering department, has been working to address this and is aware of apparently some deficiencies with the stormwater system. So that's a quick overview of Sycamore Cottages and what we've been doing staff-wise to basically be inspecting this as the project's nearly done to make sure these things get addressed. And we will not take over the roads in there for maintenance because they're planned to be taken over as town-maintained roads until they address these, I guess you call punch list type items in there. So that's a quick overview, or relatively quick. Eric, I don't know if you have anything to share.
The most recent thing, and Mark summed it up pretty well, it was you're likely to soon get the last request for the release of a bond, which covered the infrastructure items to be completed. The separate matter on, as Mark described, these punch list items comes down to the fact that a lot of this infrastructure has now been in place for a while. And
Speak up a little bit, I'm having a hard time hearing anything he's saying.
A lot of the infrastructure that was put in has been sitting there a good while now, like this was done in phases. So as Mark mentioned, they will be coming to us with a request for takeover of the streets, curbs and sidewalks in there, and before we let them come to you, council, with that request, we're letting Public Works, Jabbo Presley is in touch with them primarily on the necessary repairs in order for him to be able to give essentially you his blessing for road takeover. And I did speak, I'm sorry, not with the lady who spoke tonight, but I spoke with another representative this morning from the, okay, hi, for at length about some of these items as well. And, you know, we're not going to lose sight of this. And Natalie from the county has indicated that I believe the pond itself is now in compliance, and they're working to correct some, I guess, structural deficiencies with a stormwater ditch that is in place. Again, that's a separate matter than anything involving road takeover and whatnot, because we're not ultimately going to be over the stormwater pond or the stormwater ditches and whatnot, so.
In the town, just for clarification, does maintain the stormwater facilities in there? We
Can't hear.
Oh, okay. Can we not interrupt, I don't mean to be rude, can we make sure not to interrupt either council or staff?
My mic is off, so sorry about that.
And if, just going forward, if anybody has any hearing issues, I do apologize, but if you could just signal, throw your hand up, and I'll make sure to let somebody know, whoever's speaking, to speak up, just so we're not interrupting and talking over people. Sorry, Mark, go ahead.
Thank you. I was just saying the stormwater maintenance of facilities like a stormwater retention pond, it's not a facility that the town maintains once that's complete. It's a responsibility of the HOA, just for some clarification on that. We do maintain the town right away, and if there's a stormwater issue related to that, but not those other facilities, so, sorry.
I have a quick question. So does the town ever, during the post-development, inspect or check to make sure the developers are doing the right thing or doing the correct stuff, they ain't cutting corners or anything like that during construction, or at least after?
It often comes down to, at the end, that's where we're at now with regard to Jabbo going out and looking at some of the infrastructure with me, and, you know, because he's more qualified. I mean, we're not a big jurisdiction. Some municipalities have construction inspectors. We don't have that. But again, it comes down to, by the time that the developer comes to the town to request street takeover, you know, they'll be coming with, you know, a simple written list of the streets and the distances, and we ask the developer to also submit an engineered certified as-built plan, that's more or less, something that, where the engineer has then taken a look at it and said, yes, it was built in accordance with the ordinance and whatnot, but also Jabo would have by then walked the neighborhood. We met Friday with the rep from Windsor Built who brought his concrete guy, and to Windsor Built's credit, their guy spotted the fact that some of the early fixes that the concrete guy had made were pretty shoddy, I'll say, and Jabo was out there making calls to DOT, asking what DOT would expect if it was a DOT-maintained road they were seeking. So Jabo's on it, and we won't let it come. We walked away from that meeting wondering whether we were going to be hearing from them weeks from now or, a few months from now. We don't have a timeline on how long to complete. And I would just say to the neighbors, just to keep adding that pressure onto the developers, as I know you probably are, so.
This road and stuff is also, it's also including like the infrastructure, saying the utilities and everything as well?
No, this is largely just streets. They'll be requesting takeover of the town-maintained, what becomes the town-maintained right-of-way of the street, sidewalk, and curb and whatnot. So we're not over any utilities. Each individual, they come through us for zoning, they go on to the county for building, fire, and all the respective utility agencies, so water would have had to sign off on it and whatnot.
Yeah,
So
and
we're
the
not
water
over
and
the
sewer,
utilities.
they have their own comprehensive, so the water would be City of Hendersonville, and then the sewer would be Metropolitan Sewerage District, or MSD, and they won't take it over until it's done right. Okay.
Well, to add,
They would have actually had to get their water and sewer closeout before they even started building houses out there, so.
Oh, okay.
to add on to what Trevor had said, I remember when we looked at the blueprints when they, first proposal years ago, and we thought, oh, well, this is really different, the way it was all clover-leafed, and we asked questions about the infrastructure because we were concerned that the roads would be too tight, and we asked about, EMS and firefighters, any of those vehicles, garbage trucks, could they come and go okay? And anytime I've driven up in there, it's just very tight. And at this point, I don't know what you can do. I would like for, the fire department or somebody, do our garbage trucks go in and out?
They absolutely do, and we would have heard about it,
Way
in
before now.
2018
Yeah.
if we had been having issues with
And
that.
we asked about
I mean,
extra parking areas and,
They are built to a standard. The town's ordinances allow a different, kind of a menu or a buffet of road choices, and it comes down to the developer at the time they're putting the plans forward. They're coming in with certain right-of-way widths or street widths. Some will accommodate on-street parking. We don't necessarily mandate on-street parking for a development like this. Now, obviously, this has been so many years ago. Again, I think they first came for approval around 2016. I think we were told at the very outset that they didn't plan to have any on-street parking. Now, again, one developer came to us with the original plan, and then Windsor bought the rights essentially to build the houses in there. So there were essentially two different parties in the mix there, but they were working together the whole time, and that's something that the HOA needs to get, established very quickly is, the fact that they might want to consult with like a fire marshal to determine like road widths, because, I don't think the roads are necessarily wide enough to accommodate on-street parking. So that's why there's so much concrete for the driveways. And a lot of people don't realize that the garages count as a parking space as per our code, and a lot of people don't park cars in their garages, as we know. I'm guilty at my own house, so.
I just about feel like it's almost like lesson learned, because you look at the blueprints and they look all pretty and everything, and then you're asking about code, and it's like, oh yeah, it's DOT approved, and it's, proper code and all of that, and then in reality, it's just hardly wide enough. And so moving forward, if there was a development that came in here, I'd be like, okay, well, it might be DOT approved, but we would prefer a little bit more width, you know,
Right.
but,
I mean, if a developer has no plans for on-street parking, and they create enough spots, counting garages, after the fact, you know,
nothing we can
the
do.
town could put up no parking signs, and I don't think anybody would like that, but, you know, that may be what it comes to.
Eric, do we still have the same rules and regulations today that we did when that was all approved, as far as the width of our streets?
More or less, yes. That's, the street choices have been largely in place since 2006, when we adopted the Land Development Code, so.
Because I remember when I did my project, it was required that I had 20 feet with a 2-foot buffer on either side for that reason. So I was just,
Yours is a little different because it was a planned residential development with only 6 units, so it was like accessing one parcel, not subdividing up into chunks, so a little different situation, so.
so we might want to look into modifying that or something to future roads into,
It could, I mean, it's a good discussion for the future, and it's hard to know what future homeowners that aren't weighing into their hypothetical lots, but like you take an example like South Chase, it has ridiculously wide streets, and some people love it, some people hate it. I mean, there's the school of thought that says with the streets being that wide, you've got all the impervious surface, so the move to narrow the streets to.
yeah, but I've
is
never, ever
largely,
heard anybody complain about the street being too wide or too much
Understand,
room.
right, understand.
Yeah, I would think that would be like a godsend.
But again, this development was pitched to us almost more like a detached townhome community, something intended to be dense, and
Yes.
it often does come down to people needing to know what they're buying into. Like with the old example from predating our current code, towns of Bagwell Mills, we had to wind up changing one of those streets to one-way because we had the issue with parking. But, you know, that was pitched to us when the developer comes to us and says, I'm putting this plan in front of you, it's going to be singles buying their first house and, you know, empty nesters, but then a family with 5 cars moves in when there's 2 parking spaces, and
Yeah.
people got to know what they're buying into.
And I think we had changes, didn't we have changes to the land development code after Towns of Bagwell Mills?
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
with roads, yeah, I remember that.
So it sounds like the roads is really the only thing that we kind of have much control over, but can we tie stormwater issues that affect roads into our allowing the roads?
Not real,
I mean, if there's erosion or something in close to the right-of-way of the road, we should be able to use that.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't have a good answer for you right now. I mean, I know that there's separate stormwater ordinances in the code that Natalie's folks oversee on how, but there's not usually a tie-in where you leverage like one thing against the other. But, you know, there's separate, you know, mechanisms in place, and I apologize, I know, lady, I'm sorry, I missed your name, Tracy and Teresa. Sorry, they had mentioned an erosion issue as well, kind of at the back of the property. And Natalie said, to her knowledge, the erosion was closed out for the project. I think what may be experienced there might be more of the kind of unfortunate internal, you know, private property erosion that we don't necessarily end up with control over. You know, the back of that development sits against the base of that mountain, where if you look up, Fernleaf is building above it, so they're probably seeing erosion down from that hill is what I'm imagining. All I can say is Natalie did say she was going to take a look at the situation, but that I can't speak to whether or not there's going to be any solution that we can do anything about on erosion. So, and I'm sorry, Bob, I don't know if I fully answered.
Well, we are very lucky to have a public works director who already had a full career working for DOT, so he knows a lot more about a lot of this stuff than most public works directors do. So we're very lucky to have him on our staff.
Any other questions or comments from council about Sycamore?
Ready to segue to
Windsor
other
Forest.
concerns? Okay. Circling back to the small cell poles, wire towers, whatever they're called. I was here last week, and I know there's probably quite a few folks that are here tonight that weren't here last week. I think the word's been getting around. I don't have a lot of new substantive information to share. I said I'd be back to talk if I had new information. The only thing I could add to last week is that we did have the first kind of online virtual meeting with the Crown Castle folks today. Mark and Jabbo Presley also sat in on that. To start, we got what I would kind of call the customary presentation from them on the types of infrastructure they do, how we're here to work with you, the kind of typical, stuff you would expect in a meeting like that. And we sort of pressed it to kind of, get cut to the chase that we understood, they said a lot at the beginning about this demand. Now, anything I say tonight, I don't want misinterpreted as defending the company or anything. I'm just often feeding back what I was told. They're going to say that all the demand, we're sitting at home on our 15, 20 devices, and the rollout of this technology is designed to be at the neighborhood level. I think there could have been a better way to go about doing it rather than ramming a statute through in 2017, thanks to a powerful lobby, but that's where we are. The folks here tonight might get sick of me talking about the statutes before all is said and done. We do have an appointment to talk to Joe Freak as the town attorney on, I believe it's Friday. Just basically to launch into a first discussion with him about this and what kind of legal standing we have, really to get him familiar with the statutes, because, I have no way to know whether he's delved into this topic before. I've said that, I'll do whatever I can to help on this, short of violating a statute. I mean, town manager and council's blessing, you tell me to violate a statute, I'll violate a statute. But what I came away from the meeting today, and again, I said this last week, is that they seem like they're going to work with us on finding more palatable locations. I know there's all kinds of talk about how many that are being proposed, both for Windsor Forest and townwide. The last number I'd heard last week was 11. As of today, I saw a very zoomed out aerial map. It's hard to pinpoint exactly, but as of now, this first batch is about 6 locations they're looking at, only one of which is in Windsor Forest. 2 of them happen to be in DOT rights-of-way around the Airport Road area, which I will say that when it comes down to them locating these towers in DOT rights-of-way, DOT is going to have that authority. We will not have a say in that matter when it's a DOT right-of-way. So, for example, if this gets pushed out of the Windsor Forest neighborhood to, say, Fanning Bridge Road, then that permitting authority is ultimately going to go to DOT. Where we left it today was that, we're happy to get in the room with you. I've been pressing for an in-person meeting because you can only do so much and get a good feel online. I hate online meetings. Sometime around the end of August, we're hopeful that they're going to send some folks here to come, look at the maps together, possibly go out in the field if we can to really scout. I probably upset some folks in an email earlier just with the way I kind of described the meeting. I said my goal was to push this out of the neighborhoods with underground utilities, if possible. Now, ultimately, they may be able to come in here, wave some papers from a lawyer, and say, we get to do this in your right-of-way. And then we'll see what happens. But first goal is to get it out of the neighborhoods with underground utilities. And the tone of how they work with us on this first batch is going to set the tone for how we deal with all other batches to come, because as several folks mentioned, we know this is not the end. They're going to be here eventually. In their dog and pony show earlier, they said somebody mentioned it out here earlier, I think the number nationwide is about 800,000 of these at the neighborhood level. They are having to scout locations. They told us that the one in Windsor Forest is being driven by a specific coverage need that's been identified. I forget who that last gentleman who spoke was, but it's not arbitrary. We don't know the whys of it yet. One nice lady spoke a minute ago, said, where's the studies? We have been presented nothing. Mark asked the questions about the more nebulous things that are unstudied or unknown about the health, aspects, the bees and whatnot. You're going to hear from them that it's fine, They said, we can present you some information that you can share. And to that, I did say that it's not up to us to defend your, I don't want to get up here and sing a song about it being okay. It's their technology, it's their industry. And so we mentioned the possibility that they would be invited to come to a presentation here at some point. We'll see if that happens.
Go ahead, Mark.
Eric mentioned that about them coming to present, and, it was like a consideration,
An awkward silence for a moment, but
yeah, an
they
awkward
didn't rule it
silence for
out.
a moment, because obviously they don't know, what they're going to walk into, because obviously, they know the sentiment is we just don't want it here. And they're trying to site small cell towers in places, so, it's, the tone, I think they do really want to try and work with us on this and try and come up with solutions that don't impact people in a neighborhood with underground utilities. Our intent is to try and steer them out as best we can, knowing what the sentiment is here from the public, or in particular, the residents in Windsor Forest. If there's some way people do not want an above-ground facility in this neighborhood, for all the reasons we've already shared with you. So that's our goal, and then, next face-to-face, hopefully soon face-to-face meeting. And, we got to be prepared, how hard we push this. If they push back, what's the next step? So that's a little bit of the dilemma, and we haven't gone round and round with anybody on this yet, so
The statute, from what I've read, and we're going to clarify all this with Joe Farikis, is that, once they submit, and they did reiterate, they are not yet applicants. They are not yet applicants. We know it's coming, but they are not yet applied for anything. Once they submit something, theoretically, I have 45 days to approve or deny it. We're going to find out from Joe what, legal ground we have to deny it. Again, based on the tone today, and I'll be able to call them liars if it's different than this, is that they act like they're going to work with us. I think they know what they stepped in. Again, I'm leery because, again, this is a nationwide rollout of this. This is just one company representing one customer who's seeking to do a few of these.
And that's the question I have.
We want to know who the customer is.
Crown Castle is who would be coming to us for permitting.
No, I mean, they need to be forward with who they're putting the towers in for. Because if they're going to say that it's coverage need that's been identified, then I want to know who the company is.
We'll convey that to you.
Yeah.
Well,
I think they're the biggest builder, installer, owner of cell towers in the country, is the impression we got, some of the information.
Do we know much about this technology? In other words, are we going through this right now for AT&T, and next year we're going to go through it with Verizon wanting to put theirs in the same neighborhoods? I mean, that's what they did with cable. They started running all these competitors. I've got two cables going through my front yard right now.
A company like Crown Castle is going to be representing clients like AT&T, like T-Mobile, like Verizon. So, this is just our first time having, and they didn't even come to us. I said, y'all really stepped in it, going and spray painting in Ravonda's yard before even having a conversation with us. But
Or even a knock on the door to let somebody know.
Right, it is just beginning, and I mean, when I first was hearing about this concept that this statute had gone through, I'm like, well, that's going to be a mess, and that's a few years ago, and I spoke to a gentleman with the IT department in Greensboro, I think I mentioned last week, that said they've been dealing with this for about 4 years, and, he was an engineer, and it's with their IT department. It's now, so obviously a lot bigger city and very compartmentalized, and so,
I'm not sure what this will look like or if it's possible, but does a statute allow for us to impose any kind of aesthetic requirements to make it more difficult to do it?
I believe, from what I know of it, there are maximum fees you can charge. Like, it talks to you about the mechanisms for, okay, you can't do a permit for every single individual tower. They have the right to come to you and say, there's a bundle, I think, of like 25 of these under one permit, and here's the max you can charge. I've seen language that speaks to specifically about neighborhoods, and this is what's scary, it speaks to neighborhoods with underground utilities where the normal maximum height is 50 feet, and I think the limit for residential with underground is 40. That's one thing we really want to talk to Joe about. And again, the tone of our in-person meeting, because it's like, there's what the statute says, but they also know they're in a hornet's nest now, and if they want an easier time coming for their next round of locations, they need to really work with us on this.
They also do try as much as possible, and that may not, in Windsor Forest, let's just say, for example, might not be a benefit, but they always try and co-locate on an existing tower. And really, the only choice to do that in Windsor Forest would be a light pole.
And they specifically talked about a scenario where an existing street light pole, like they might work something out with Duke Energy to swap out I think there's very small light poles there. They would potentially swap out a pole that would be a different kind of light pole with their equipment built into it, so.
I know we talked with the attorney Friday. I mean, I like George's idea, and it sounds like council don't like this, is we come up with a draft of a resolution, some type of thing, didn't see what we can do and then send it up. I know it shows that Fletcher Council and the residents really doesn't like this. I mean, we're trying to do all kinds of stuff, but I do like George's idea of drafting up a resolution. At least we can send it up showing that we are against this.
Well, I was going to say, we really need to be talking with our legislators too, to let them know that we don't like that this is happening at the state level and imposed on us. I mean, it's a cookie cutter solution that may work somewhere else, but doesn't work here in Fletcher. Sorry, Bob, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to see a little bit more accountability here in terms of, we don't even know who the customer is. When they put in the last cable, where they came in, just dug the hell out of my yard, made it a mess, the only people you could talk to were the people on the truck, that half of them, first of all, didn't speak English, but they wouldn't tell you who the customer was, so you didn't find out that it was Mediacom until after the whole job was done and there was nothing you could do about it.
And that's the rub, is that essentially this bill, and I mean, they said it in the meeting this morning, they are basically now a public utility. And I've had go-arounds, as the ladies up front here, Mark's heard from folks, examples like that, when people get a trench dug in their yard, like a lot of folks don't realize there's a utility easement right in there, and those companies roll into town, they can come in and work in their easements, and they don't,
They don't have to ask anybody's permission.
Right. I've been yelled at very significant, some of the biggest chewing out I've had in my career has been over when a utility company has come in and dug up somebody's, what they perceive as their front yard.
But anything we can do to find out who the customer is, I think we should be doing.
And again, we have not yet received a submittal, received an application, really even received any kind of written inquiry about this until, everybody got loud. And I found their contact person through this online portal that they had, and I wonder if I hadn't been the one to reach out first, whether we'd have been contacted yet, to be honest. So, I mean, I want to take everything they're saying to me at face value now, like however naive that may be, but again, the tone we take with them now is going to set the tone for later, so, I want to make sure we don't go off a cliff here, but obviously, the folks in here are concerned, though that company is not our concern, so.
Eric, do you know if a gated community would be treated any differently?
It depends on if the right-of-way is public.
So if Windsor Forest decided to make their own HOA and turn that into a gated community, would that benefit their need?
Well, you can't gate public streets, I've heard Jabbo say. Now, if we said no longer under town maintenance,
Yeah.
then they could become private
I'm just saying
streets.
hypothetically, that they would be giving up a lot of stuff. I know, I'm just saying.
But I would bet the right-of-ways would be grandfathered in. If they're
It's a
public
good
right-of-way
question.
now, I don't think you can take it away.
They might be able to do that, yeah, I'm not sure, but, in private developments or a gated community, usually those are always private roads, and they have a lot more control
Yeah.
for utilities coming in there and doing certain things, to some extent. And these utilities come in and they come in hard, and they usually have subs doing a lot of this work.
And I think they do that on purpose, so they hide their identity so people don't know who to
It's harder
complain
to find
to.
answers or to correct it in the field quickly.
Generally, the only times I've really seen the utilities get in contact is when it involves a road cut. And then it's, touch base with Jabbo, and there's, okay, well, you got to fix it back the way it was and whatnot, so.
Right.
Anyway. And lastly, and it's so fluid, I don't know, right now, my tentative plan is to actually tentatively get this on September meeting as an agenda item if I have a significant update. If we still don't have a permit application, if we're no further than we are tonight, then that may be premature. Folks from the neighborhood can call us right up to I guess around the end of August or getting into Labor Day weekend to find out if we're indeed going to have an agenda item that night. We're not going to try and pull the wool over anybody's eyes and not bring this back up with you again. It's like, if we get sudden and quick permit applications on this, we're going to be in touch with the lawyer. I'll say tonight that I'll hold it every bit of the 45 days that I'm able to as we consult with Joe on this. I would even go so far as to say that, maybe we could be fluid. Now, we know the regular meeting schedule, like if something came up that surprised us on this, there could possibly be like a quick special called meeting if we had to take action on like a special resolution or anything like that.
One other thing, Eric, is it possible that you could put together a list for us and for the public of what the right-of-ways are? Or they vary so much?
I'll harken back, I don't admit it freely, but my early days of my career, I worked for the city of Asheville for 7 years, and I learned right-of-ways can vary so much from spot to spot, and it often comes down to, we have to tell folks that an individual survey would show the right-of-way at their property. I can go in GIS and take a very crude measurement on any given street. Some of these old streets have 45-foot wide right-of-ways. Some of them, some roads that would surprise you, like I think some of the old ones in Wildwood even have 60-foot right-of-ways, meaning that 30 feet from the edge back of the center line, there's a lot more right-of-way. I don't think we see the crazy 60-feet ones that often in newer developments, but it can just vary. Obviously, a Highway 25 is probably a 90 or 100-foot right-of-way.
I mean, how is an individual, if an individual wants to say, on my lot, I want to know what the right-of-way is, where would they go to get this information?
They would basically get a survey, and that's something people are surprised a lot that we have to say that, well, we can't tell you precisely where your right-of-way line is. It's going to be a matter of getting a survey done on it.
Now, is that the kind of survey that theoretically everyone should get when they have a closing on a house?
I would always get a survey closing on a house, yeah.
So you may have it in your papers somewhere.
I think the vast majority of home sales end up happening without people getting fresh surveys. I'm guilty of that myself. I've never had a property I bought surveyed, but with some of the stuff I've witnessed over the years, now I'm of the school that says, yes, everybody should get a survey when they buy a house.
Okay, thank you.
All righty. I don't like we have any other questions or comments, but I would like to thank you, Eric and Mark, the rest of the staff for all your diligent work with the Windsor Forest community and the Sycamore Cottages community and Fletcher in general. I think it makes a big difference, and thank you all for being engaged. It makes our jobs easier. Thank you. And before I move on in our agenda, you all are free to stay here and enjoy our meeting, or do that.
How quickly they turn on you.
I
There
know.
goes the neighborhood.
Thank you for kicking us out.
Don't have to
Letting you
leave,
out.
go ahead and stay. Oh, that'd be great. Yes.
All right, thank you.
Shane Stallman with Asheville Airport.
Thank you for coming in.
Information technology, he contacted me and said, he knows what he's doing, and he knows of so many other areas that work, he was gonna try and contact you.
Yeah, he's Shane Stockton with the airport?
He's vice president of IT.
Okay,
He wasn't gonna be here tonight, so.
okay. Thank you, Ms. Ravonda.
Thank you.
See ya.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Boy,
Okay, relative to what? He just wanted to come and check out our stuff.
Like literally, they're with the
Before they-
neighborhood.
Yeah, I figured that was the case. I said, well, let's- before I get going.
Doing demos. Yep.
All righty, moving on to item number 1, approval of the minutes. Any corrections, additions, or deletions to the minutes presented? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve the minutes as presented?
so moved.
We have a motion to approve the minutes as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of approving the minutes, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to updates from council, if there are any.
Yes, I just wanted to say, I went to the, they called it a groundbreaking ceremony at the airport last Friday for the new terminal and stuff they're putting up. It's going to be pretty impressive. It's going to take 3.5 to 4 years to do the first major phase, which is basically going to go from, right now, I think they have 4 covered walkways to planes, and they got 3 of them that aren't covered. But this new, first phase they'll end up having 12 totally covered walkways, and they're setting aside the property and making preliminary plans to add another 7. What they're doing, what they're going to do, they're going to build right on top of the current terminal area, and then they're going to go north. So the area to the north of the current terminal area, which is the airport safety building, and there's several hangars there, those are all going to be torn down and moved, so this whole project can move farther to the north. It was interesting, instead of the typical groundbreaking where you have all these politicians out there with gold shovels shifting dirt, they did a countdown, and when they hit 0, this big piece of equipment came out and started tearing down the building that was right next to where the tent was, so it was pretty impressive, but
It's a lot more fun.
it's going to be a lot of work. There's going to be a lot of people inconvenienced. They hope they can do it so that it doesn't too bad impact people. I know parking is going to be an issue, because one of the things that they're going to do, the current multi-deck parking unit they have, they're going to build another one just to the north of that, which is right now ground parking. So all that ground parking is going to be lost while they're building that new parking deck. That's one of the reasons why they're building the area south of the runway, out south of the airport, so they can move more parking down there. But in the long run, I think it's going to be a really neat-looking airport.
Sounds
They
good.
start doing their board meetings here, the airport.
Oh, that's right.
They're
Yeah.
going to start holding them here because they'll be displaced with their meeting space over there.
When are they starting that again?
October.
October.
How long is that project going to be, Bob? I didn't know.
3.5 to 4 years to get the first main phase done, and then I don't think they have a date to add the additional 7.
On the north end? Okay.
Yeah, to the north. But the majority of the infrastructure, all the new luggage areas and everything, 3.5 to 4 years. And that is one of the oldest airports in the country right now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's 62 years old.
Yeah.
The main
Oh, wow.
portions of it, yeah.
I didn't know it was that old. Okay.
I mean, that's young still. For an airport.
Any other updates from council?
I was at Fletcher Park the last week of the day camp and spoke to the director down there and just said, how things go. He was talking about how great things were. I said, well, if you could change anything, what would it be? Did everything work smooth? Would you want to do anything differently? And he said he would love to see another covered shelter like the one they've got, because they have a hard time getting all the kids under it at one time when it rains or when they're all doing something. And he said that's the only thing that he could see. And I think I've mentioned it before, but I'd like to see batting cages between the fields, which could double as a shelter and batting cages, since we still have that money left over for,
You mean a totally covered batting cage?
yeah. Well, they put them on cables and you just push the net back to the back side, and then you've got the gazebo.
But it's under a roof type?
It's under the roof, kind of like the one we've got now. But I saw the numbers, that rented a lot, and that brought in a lot of income, that one covered shelter. So even if it's not there, somewhere else, I think it would be a good investment for Fletcher to have more shelter down there.
Can you
That sounds
use-
like, oh, go ahead.
Can you use something like that for like a multi-use, almost like a batting cage, like you said, or even like an amphitheater, and we have all these concerts where somebody can go in it, and where it's got electricity and all that stuff?
I think so. I'm up for the amphitheater area anyway, a covered spot there, because that, once again, would be a good investment of our money. We wouldn't have to rent tents, wouldn't have to maintain it, put it up, tear it down. And it could possibly all be one thing. Yeah, we could probably make it
Multiple use.
multi-use for sure, yeah.
Totally covered, good-sized amphitheater would be pretty
That would
darn
be nice.
expensive.
It'd be nice to have. I know
I mean,
that,
most towns do the covered stage and stuff, make a nice-sized stage, but it's still basically an outdoor venue.
but it could be also used for something like that, because I know, speaking to one resident in Livingston Farms, they'd love to see more concerts throughout the summer. Said this too, they'd love to see 6.
It's kind of, yeah. I was kind of
And they wouldn't have
surprised
to have
it's
the
so
batting cage
short.
in it. I mean, if it was multi-use for picnic areas, to rent it, and for the amphitheater, I would see that being justifiable for sure.
Moving to parks, something, they put the,
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many different things you can probably
Yeah.
use. It's a good idea.
Well, I for sure think the cover shelter is a good idea, as we're extending out to teen camp next year, right?
Yeah, they'll probably do the middle school camp too. They
Right.
brought that back this year, I think. as well.
Okay, I thought it was going back
in and
next
out
year.
for,
Okay.
Yeah, or. think they
Well,
did
I
it
mean,
maybe.
that's one thing that we
It's
may want.
growing, yeah.
Yeah.
One thing we may want to consider, I know they want to expand the programs, but if this is an issue and we can't deal with it, there's no use in expanding the programs
Yeah.
until we get new facilities.
Yeah. Well, they spend time under it, they're out doing games, they go on field trips, but that's kind of their home base, as long
Yeah.
as the weather's not terrible outside. The other thing, if we built another shelter, is just more rental opportunities too, because in the warm months, it stays pretty well booked out.
Yeah.
That shelter, I mean, yeah, we get a lot of rentals on that shelter.
Can we ask somebody to just do us a summary of what kind of rental income we're talking about, for a year or something like that?
Yeah.
I mean, if we knew that, that might help as we're contemplating the possibility of adding another shelter.
Yeah. All right, any other updates from council? All righty, seeing none. Moving on to the consent agenda. Any questions, comments, concerns related to the one item there? Seeing none, do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
I'll make the motion.
We have a motion to approve the consent agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of approving the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Moving on, item number 4, the discussion of potential public engagement efforts. Before you start that, Mr. Manager, I was just going to make a comment. I know this is my idea, but it seemed like there was a little bit of reservation last week, and I think Councilmember Franklin, you made the comment that people are pretty comfortable reaching out to us, which I do agree with, and I think that's the case. So if we don't want to do this, I think we'll be okay. But if we do, maybe it's a good experiment, and if it doesn't work, then it doesn't work.
I mean, we can try it,
I got
and
one
there may be other
suggestion I was
things we
going to
can
talk to
do
you
too.
about tonight, excuse me. I
Sure.
have one thing I was going to mention in follow-up to that, based on the feedback I got from you last week, so excuse me.
Yeah, go ahead, Mark. Yeah.
So this layout that you have here, this is the proposed layout for the Fletcher Family Festival. And I was talking to, just following up from the meeting last week with department heads, and I told them what I'd presented to y'all and just some of the feedback, and some of you mentioned maybe just doing something at a Parks and Rec event. And what you could do, and it's just a suggestion, if you're interested, we can set this up. It's not on here, but a good location is if we had a tent set up and, maybe a couple of you could be in there. And if you wanted, Fletcher Town Council members or, something to draw and do it like at the base of Field 5 here, so behind the backstop, where there's an opening there for another, and it's a pretty public or, visible spot for the Fletcher Family Festival. So if you're interested, we can set that up and do it. We need a couple takers. Really try to keep it 2 people because technically if we get
Couple of meetings.
3, not to be too overly strict, but, so if that could be a test one, and if you want to wait till next year, that's fine, it doesn't, but some of the feedback was maybe do something like at a Parks and Rec event, and so that would be one opportunity. So if you're interested and you want to let me know tonight, we'll set it up. If you want to think about that, we'll just kind of give you a deadline, because we need time to plan to get a tent. I'd like to have some things for you to hand out there, and just kind of get that set up, but,
How long is the
I think it'd be
event?
worthwhile.
How long is the event?
it's 5 to 7, I think, or.
So we could
5 to
probably
8.
get, since there's, so many of us right here, we could
could
possibly rotate
Yeah.
in shifts.
And what day is the festival?
23rd?
It's September 23rd, that's a Saturday, September 23rd.
I think it'd be a good
I think
shot.
it'd be a good idea, and you might even want to put a little poster up there about, if anybody wants any information on, job openings at the town of Fletcher, information on, the police department or public works or any other positions that we might have open.
Yeah.
I like the idea.
Try it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we may need to order some stuff, but I want to make it nice for you, maybe if you can hand out something, or materials, or for people who might be interested, especially someone new, coming to the town. So, okay, well, we'll work on that, thank you. And if that's a success, and if you want to do another event, and again, we're not going to push this, based on mayor's feedback, but, if you're interested in doing anything bigger, again, then we can set something
But I'd
up.
like to put a little bit of thought into what we put there. Maybe have a couple of posters to say, do you have a question about the town that you're interested in talking to a public official with or something?
Yeah,
Make sure they understand why we're gonna be there.
right.
It's not just sitting there handing things out.
yeah.
Kissing babies.
Yeah.
We'll make sure some babies get one, so you get some. Can we do that now?
I don't think so.
Okay, good.
All right, anything else on that item?
I didn't have anything else, thank you.
We all feel good?
Yeah.
All righty.
Great.
Moving on to your comments, Mr. Manager.
Okay. Had several things here, and some of it's a little bit of repeat from last week, but, so, the sound walls, just again, that appears to be moving forward, the sound walls next to I-26, kind of protecting the Wildwood neighborhood, and we will follow up with them some additional communication to the particular residents that get an opportunity to vote on it, so to speak, or at least give a response that they support it. And it only needs a simple majority for that to go through. So I just wanted you all to know that. So that's just what's happening with the sound walls. We think that notification will probably be September, early September at this point. The next thing I wanted to mention, I said something last week about contacting DOT about considering possibly some changes to the intersection going into Ingalls. So I'm talking the intersection heading north, turning left into Ingalls, and it's got the flashing yellow. The sight distance is very difficult. They adjusted, as you remember, several years ago.
When they put in the double turn lane.
And we have some real concerns of the danger there. And again, the police gathered some accident data 2.5 years before they put that in, and in 2.5 years since. And there was 4 accidents with injuries before that, and there was 17 after it. So, I think there's enough of a case to be really examining a potential change there. So we've sent that back to DOT, to Steve Buchanan with DOT, who's our traffic engineer, and he said they were going to look at each individual accident and time of day and things like that, and study it. But we want them to really look at it. If that needs the police department sitting down with them face-to-face to talk about this, myself, we've done that with some other issues in years past with DOT. We're willing to do that. So we're concerned about it. I mean, what precipitated some of the most recent was, Mayor saw a motorcycle accident there with injuries, and it's tough. So anyways, that's in motion. I mentioned the Community Shred Day. So we're looking at, and this is something in conjunction with First Citizens Bank. They had offered, to partner on something, and they're willing to pay for a shred day. We're looking at October 20th, probably at the Fletcher branch here on Hendersonville Road. As we get more details, we'll share that with you. So that would be
Do you
just
know,
another
is
nice
that going to
bump.
be like the other one where people from council can be there and help out and answer any questions, or are they going to want to take?
I'm sure they'll have First Citizens reps there.
Right.
But I can't imagine they would
Okay,
not
yeah,
want you all to
if
be
they're
there.
asking for us to be partners, they should.
Yeah.
That was a Friday, right?
It's a Friday. They didn't want to do a Saturday. I know we were trying to do Saturdays just for better ease of people using it, but I'm thinking probably a Friday afternoon, maybe.
Would it be difficult to add the pill drop?
I don't know
if that's.
it depends on the police schedule, so we can, thanks for mentioning that.
Ask the chief what he thinks about it.
Yeah.
Whether it's,
Yeah.
we need
Yeah.
2 a year or one sufficient.
Okay.
And it's probably going to take about, 3 or 4 people, because it stays busy.
Yeah.
So everybody's running.
We'll talk to them, and I know it's helped having the box where they can receive the old medications downstairs. I mean, you can't just walk in there and throw it in there. A police officer has to come in and you put it in, but, good question. Yeah, we'll
Do we
follow up on that.
promote that much? In other words, do we, in the newsletters, we talked about that quite a bit, about the box downstairs that...
I know we've had that in there. We
Okay.
probably should do another reminder about it, that's a good, let's make a note. So the next thing was, and I heard your feedback on the tax bills and the insert. The next day I talked to our staff getting ready to do it. They'd already printed that attachment for the tax bill, because it would have made more sense to have a different colored page or more, or color on the flyer, just to draw your attention.
year.
So I apologize, but I mentioned something next day, it was too late, it had already been printed up.
Well,
So
next year's
it-
fine.
They went out, and
Next year's fine.
we'll do it next year.
Yeah.
Friday, I think they were mailed out, all the tax
Okay,
bills.
because I've had some people call me and talking about how high their bills went, and I've not seen mine yet, so I don't know. I guess they just got theirs quicker for some reason.
They must just got theirs before you. So, yeah, and we'll anticipate some questions and, feedback on that, because some people's tax bills will go up, even though the rate was adjusted to almost revenue neutral. So that's that. This is something I want, and this could be a separate agenda item at some point, and I'm not trying to make a bigger issue out of this than maybe needs to be right now, but I guess what caught my attention on it, you've got a handout there that we put on the dais, and this was some information from the community college about their 4-year facility master plan. And I guess what set this up is I was at a breakfast, and they for the community college, and they gave a big presentation, facilities, everything going on, and they then mentioned at the end that Fletcher's still in their facility plan to do a building out here. And I wanted to look at their old plan, at the 2 last plans, and so I pressed them to get me a copy of it and had some email exchanges. And if you look at the first one, this is the 4-year plan, this is on the top, from 2019 through 2023. The Fletcher Center, so a Fletcher building here, which would probably be geared, we would hope, towards manufacturing training, was never funded. And in the second page, they had some description of what it would be, notes of explanation, Fletcher Center, I have an asterisk by it on the second page. So this was the prior 4-year plan. They just redid the plan. And if you go further into this, it's on their chart here, like similar to our capital improvement plan, there's no specific mention of the Fletcher facility, which was in the last one. I don't know why.
Probably because they talked with county commissioners, would be my guess.
Well, so I just had some general comments, and then also in light of what we do here in the building for the community college. But I'll get to that in a second. So it's not in their chart here, and then if you look at the next page, their narrative description's even more watered down now. Just a classroom building in the town of Fletcher continues to be on our facilities master plan for future consideration. Well, this has been going on for 10 years, okay? 2015, we started to reserve space here for the community college to do continuing ed classes. And part of it was to show, and we demonstrated it because we get so many calls to use and book our rooms here, the multi-purpose room upstairs, and then not as much the community room, but that's a smaller one. And it's, I emailed about this because I was concerned to the community college president and also to one of their vice presidents. And I mentioned I'm concerned that this is not getting kind of the attention, focus, and started to suggest a meeting, and then I got a response back about, well, it's got to be funded before we're going to do schematics and et cetera, which we know it's got to be funded by the county. The county's got to make a decision, commissioners, if they're going to put any money, attention to this. And I know up to a year ago or so, they tried, or at least Commissioner Lapsley tried to work on this and was shot down. So we're to the point, we did this to demonstrate the demand for a facility out here. We started making our rooms scheduled off or reserved or restricted times just for the community college, and we've done that. We've been a good steward of it. And demonstrated that there's enough demand for the space here, because we have to turn others away, that we may not keep that open for them on certain days, and they can call and they can reserve it if they want to reserve it, but not keep that space specifically open. And I don't know if we want to go across that bridge. We're trying to think of ways to draw more attention to this, and maybe that's not the most positive way, but there's demand for facilities here, and I don't know who has the attention of this. Does the community college board does? There's only so much staff, the president and that can do to create an argument. Dialogue with county commissioners, I don't know how that, I'm not supposed to talk to them about stuff like this, really just the manager. So these are just things to be aware of, that we're not making a lot of traction here. And maybe when we do, if we have to do an RFP on the continued redevelopment of the town center property, which includes the property where a college facility would go, maybe that we look at other uses, and that isn't reserved for it. So, throw that out there. I don't know. And not to get into a huge discussion tonight, because I just put it under manager comments, but to be thinking about this.
I don't think things are going to change with the county, to tell you the truth, and if we end up with another use of the property out here, I think we should go for it.
Oh, I said 10 years.
I don't disagree with you. It doesn't seem like the sentiment has changed from...
It's only gotten worse, if anything.
From the commissioner, so unless we see new commissioners go there, I don't think it's going to change.
Yeah.
When I saw how watered down the facilities master plan was compared to the prior 4 years, and it's not even mentioned for funding, to me, and I mean, I've gone and made presentations to the college board. I've had lots of conversations. I mean, Dr. Leatherwood's been receptive when I've communicated with her and I've met with her, but there's just, it's not happening, and it appears to be less so a priority. So I just, the movers and shakers aren't shaking this. So again, you don't have to make a decision on that tonight, but it's something that is, I think bears some attention.
Is that any of your comments?
I just had one other thing. It was really just the park. We're getting close to on a happier note here. Always finish on a happy note. They need to do another coating on the courts, and some of the netting inside and some of the internal fencing appears to be on track. I know we were trying to shoot for 21st. Unless they hit some snags as far as materials coming in, which always could happen. Right now, we're kind of shooting for August 28th, if we can hit that. When it is done, everything's in there, which we're getting really close. We'd like to do a ribbon cutting for that, and but I hope you all have seen it, and it looks great.
Really good.
I mean, we're excited to see it open and see people
Looks
using
good.
it, and I think it looks pretty good. So I'm planning on shooting hoops out there once they're closer. Don't hurt myself. That's all I had.
Is there any other business from council? All right, is there a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion.
A motion to adjourn, is there a second?
Second.
All righty, there's a motion and a second, any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of adjourning say aye. Aye. Those opposed? We are adjourned.
Mark, I was just thinking, with that new facility going up there, is there any changes we need to make to the in-park cameras?
One thing that I remember that resonated with me.
I was just thinking, I thought last time.
That's a great point.
We probably should add one over there.
Something pointing that direction to help prevent vandalism.
Kind of all talking around about.
I mean, we've got the poles and everything out there, hopefully it wouldn't